So, let me ask you this. Have you started a diet before, planned out everything perfectly, your macros, your calories, you had all kinds of great ambitions about what kind of a great lean physique you're gonna get, and then only a couple of weeks later, you quit your diet, and shortly after that, you were planning your next diet again? If so, it is fairly common. So I decided that the next couple of videos I'm going to be dedicating to this topic. How can you actually succeed with a diet, finish what you started, complete the plan that you initiated, and actually get the results that you want? But first of all, my name is Abel, and I do all kinds of cool videos about losing fat, building muscle. They are all based on science and practical application. So if you're new here, I highly recommend that you subscribe, look around, and binge watch other videos that I have done. And otherwise, let's just jump right in. So the first thing that I want to tell you is that most people don't quit a diet because they physically cannot take it anymore. It is usually not the case that the hunger that they're dealing with is just so severe that they cannot take it anymore, or their energy levels are just so shit that they cannot continue the diet. Of course, it can happen in some really extreme cases, but most typically that's not the case. Most diets fail because people mentally cannot take it anymore, which can also come in different forms. Sometimes the diet is just too boring and people quit because of that. Sometimes the results get too slowly and people get demotivated and they quit because of that. Sometimes the social pressure they have to deal with is just so bad that they have to quit. There are many ways in which you can lose this internal battle of dieting and only a few ways to succeed, but one crucial aspect of this is decision fatigue. I'm sure you've heard it before that there is a finite number of decisions you can make every day because each decision you make has a certain energy cost. Now, I don't know if that's technically true. However, I can tell you that there is only so many decisions you can make about your diet before you really start hating your diet. And if you start becoming fed up with the process of dieting, it is only a matter of time until you fail. So in this video, we are going to be addressing this aspect of dieting, decision fatigue, and how to eliminate that so you will be just incredibly more likely to succeed and follow through with your diet. And that right away brings us to an idea that the bros have been preaching for decades, if not a millennia at this point, and that is the art of meal planning, or how I would rather like to call it, developing a food routine. This is something that you will learn and read about in virtually any kind of book or resource from some of the past bodybuilders or physique athletes who managed to get into excellent shape time and time again. These people, interestingly, often had a rather poor understanding of nutrition on the whole. They didn't quite understand energy balance and macronutrient balance. They certainly weren't familiar with if it fits your macros, but despite all of that, they still managed to get into really, really great shape time and time again because of this simple tool. And to me personally, it's even more telling how powerful this tool was and is that if you actually look at the meal plans that these people put together, they're often rather dumb meal plans. They often contain foods like peanut butter, a lot of bread, often not a lot of vegetables. They frequently avoided fruits. They often consumed a fair amount of liquid calories. In other words, their diets just weren't very conducive to proper hunger management, but they still succeeded. And the mystery behind that is actually fairly simple to crack, is because of structure and routine. And the power of routine during a fat loss diet just cannot be overemphasized. You see, day to day, we make a lot of food-related decisions. And that is problematic, A, because those cognitive resources could be used to make decisions about other, more meaningful things. But B, anytime you make a decision, you have the potential to shift your future outcome in a positive or in a more negative direction. Now, when you're in full possession of your willpower, discipline, and just rational mind, you can be optimistic that you will make good, rational decisions. However, if there is one time when your chances of making good, rational decisions is decreased, is when it comes to making food-related decisions on a fat loss diet. Now, of course, depending on how severe your diet is, how long you have to diet, and how lean you are to begin with, this situation is more or less bad. But even take a scenario where you might want to take 8 weeks to go down from 20% body fat to a very good-looking, aesthetic, and healthy body fat percentage of 12% body fat. Now, objectively looking at it, that's not a very brutal diet, right? But still, 8 weeks, that is still about 6 full days where you have to undereat, cut calories, and do the right thing day in and day out. Now, at first, you might be looking at it and say, 60 days? Come on, that's nothing. Give it to me. If I can get a six-pack at the end of that, no big deal. But envision the following scenario. You've been sticking to your diet for the last couple of weeks, you've been diligent, doing the right things, but you wake up one morning, you're sleepy, sleep deprived, grumpy and lethargic. You look in the mirror, you don't look very good, you look bloated, which can happen because you're eating a lot of fibrous stuff. Your muscles look depleted and emaciated, which can also happen sometimes during a diet. And then you step on the scale, and the scale weight is also not down, or it might be up a little bit. We all know that the scale weight can do some funky things during a diet. Fluid shifts, sodium shifts, water retention, they can make your weight highly variable, but still at that point you just say, fuck it, I'm putting in the work and this is what I'm getting. I've been diligent for 20 days. Wait, 20 days? So I have 40 left to go? Screw this. Do you think that at this point you're in a great position to make a rational, elaborate decision about what you're going to eat for your next meal? You see where I'm going with this? The point is, dieting has a lot of positives. It can teach you about self-discipline, it can make you more structured, it can train your willpower, and of course, it can make amazing things to your appearance. But just like anything else in life that's worth pursuing, it has its dark moments. And during those times, routine and structure is a super powerful tool. So what I recommend to you is that you develop a food routine. That is a good idea in general, but during a fat loss phase, especially so. So have a list of foods that you have in your diet in general and that you're building your meals around. A simple formula that I like to recommend to people is to have a baseline plate of food. And that plate of food should contain the following items: a protein/fat source, a carbohydrate/fiber source, and some optional additional carb or fat source. Now, of course, depending on what phase you're in and what your goals are, this might look very different. For example, when you're dieting and you're trying to lose fat, your protein and fat source will often be the same thing. Your carbohydrate/fiber source will often be something higher fiber, lower carb, and you will often skip the optional additional fat or carb source. But when you're maintaining or trying to build muscle, you will have a lot more leeway with all of these things. That is a very simple formula, easy to remember, and it makes food-related decisions much, much easier. And I would also recommend that you have a rough plan for what these meals will look like in terms of food selection. For example, for breakfast, you might have some eggs and ham and some vegetables. For lunch, you might have some meat and vegetables again. And then for your post-workout meal and dinner, you might have more fruits, more carb-dominant meals, and leaner protein sources. That is just an example, but the point is to have a plan. And of course, you don't have to be religious about these meals either. You might have a couple of protein and carb sources that you're rotating through. So you might have 2 or 3 options for your protein source in each meal, and the same thing might apply to your carb sources. And this can be especially helpful for people who have a naturally harder time eating less, because it's been shown in research fairly conclusively that higher food variety in our environment is more likely to make us overeat. Think of a buffet, for example. When you have a lot of food around you at all times, your appetite is a lot more stimulated and your brain is a lot more motivated to overeat. And this variety can not only exist in your environment, but also internally inside your head. So when your diet is completely freestyled every day and for each meal you have a new decision to make about what kinds of foods you will throw together, you will be a lot less likely to succeed at adhering to a calorie deficit and put together healthy, lower calorie meals. It can still be done, of course, it will just be a bit more challenging. Whereas when you have a plan and a structure for what your meals are going to look like, you will be a lot more likely to adhere to lower calorie, healthy meals. And the craziest thing is, this can make the process of dieting a lot more predictable and smooth, and that applies to making modifications to your diet as well. Again, coming back to what the bros have been doing traditionally, they had a meal plan, and when they hit a plateau and they needed to reduce their food intake, they just reduced portion sizes and amounts of the foods that they were eating. As old and bro-ish as that may sound, it is just damn effective. So what I would recommend to you is that when you want to make a modification to your diet, and let's say you want to take 100 calories away, instead of revamping the whole thing and saying, okay, so I'm going to add in this and take away that, and then I'm going to cut that in half, and then I'm going to add in half of that other food source. Instead of that, just have a loose meal plan in your head at all times and make slight modifications within that meal plan. So for example, instead of 3 whole potatoes in this meal, I'm going to eat 1 whole potato and some more low-calorie, non-starchy veggies. And in this other meal, I'm going to replace a given amount of starches with some lower-calorie, non-starchy veggies again. It is simple, it is predictable, and it is just very, very effective. And it will also make your body composition readings often more predictable because there is just less variation due to very large fluctuations in the types of foods that you're eating. And even if you're a hardcore macro tracker and you're tracking down every gram of calorie and macronutrient that you ingest, I recommend, again, that instead of freestyling the whole thing, you take your macros, you create a meal plan off of that and follow that, and again, making modifications within that meal plan when you need to. And of course, this brings up the issue that this way your diet is going to be so boring and rigid, and how sustainable is that? And my answer to that is, look, during dieting, we will have to make certain trade-offs. Again, we are eating in a calorie deficit, right? We are purposefully under-eating. And I would say that if your main challenge during the diet is that it's boring, then you're winning the game. Because the ultimate obstacle, the hardest thing you can face during a diet is actually hunger. Boredom can be alleviated in a number of ways. You can adopt new hobbies, you can go out more with your friends, you can attend karaoke parties, whatever, but hunger over time tends to win out. And secondly, your meal plan doesn't have to suck. Again, we want to learn about the structure and the routine from the bros, not necessarily about the meal plans themselves, which admittedly sucked quite a bit in their cases. So you can absolutely put together a meal plan for yourself from foods that you enjoy eating, that satisfy and satiate you, and that will make your diet on the whole fairly enjoyable, or as enjoyable at least as an actual fat loss diet can be. So that would be my tip for today. This is an underrated and forgotten aspect of dieting, but if you implement it and embrace it, you can be much more likely to actually achieve your goals, and your dieting days can flow by much more smoothly, and you will find that the days are not dragging on as badly. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then like the video and let me know what you think of it. If you're new here, subscribe. And if you're interested in working together potentially and you're looking for coaching, then you can go to the link below, which should be sustainableselfdevelopment.com. We can hop on a call, discuss what your goals and challenges are, and potentially we can end up working together on your goals. Or not, we will see. So that's all I had to say for today. Have a nice day, guys, and see you in the next video.